Hey, it's your contrarian soul guide, Dawn, and you're listening to Sovereignty Rising, the space where we unlearn the fear and reclaim the flame. You are not your emotions. You are the one who's aware of them. You are the experiencer, not the storm. You are the stillness beneath the rise and the fall. And yet, how often have you felt consumed by your feelings? Ashamed for crying, guilty for being angry, numbed out because feeling was just too much. This episode isn't about fixing your emotions. It's about freeing your relationship with them. Because your emotions are not the enemy. They are your messengers. They are your medicine, and they are sacred. Let's reclaim your emotional sovereignty together. Welcome to Sovereignty Rising. Ditch the fear, embrace your flame. I'm Dawn Elgin, contrarian soul guide, visionary mystic, and creatrix of practical spiritualism. And this is the space where we strip away the fear, burn the old stories down, and reclaim the power that was never truly lost, just buried. Here, we dive into raw, unfiltered conversations on emotional healing, spiritual awakening, and the art of unlearning everything that keeps you stuck, small, and disconnected from your truth. Together, we rise like phoenixes. Flame first, fear last. Let's rise together. Many of us were taught to fear or suppress emotion. Good girls don't get angry. Strong people don't cry. Don't be so sensitive. The message was control your feelings to be lovable, safe, or accepted. And as a result, we repress, disconnect, or over-identify with emotion. But emotions aren't problems, they're portals. They point to our thoughts, our needs, boundaries, wounds, and desires. Emotional sovereignty means I can feel without being ruled by my feelings. If you're an empath, parent, or caregiver, you've probably guided others through their emotions, but somewhere along the way, you stopped feeling your own. This is your invitation back to your own medicine. Or maybe you're in the middle of a life pivot. You've left the job, the title, and the grind, and now it's quiet. But this is where you reclaim the voice underneath all of that noise. When we don't allow emotions, we fragment. We create a split between the true self or the soul and the performed self or the ego. We experience symptoms such as anxiety, people-pleasing, burnout, numbness, resentment. But disconnection from emotion equals disconnection from truth. Let's get honest. What emotions have you deemed unacceptable? What have you tried to outrun, avoid, or maybe stuff down? The parts of you you're at war with are the parts that hold your freedom. And the good news is, it's not too late. You're not too far gone. Your emotions aren't regressions. They're your rebirth. Emotion is simply energy in motion, emotion. Emotions have a cycle. They rise, they peak, and then they fall if we allow them. And studies show that they have a lifespan of about 90 seconds if we don't interfere, adding a story or an explanation or anything else to go with them. It's our resistance or attachment that makes them linger. Integrate. The problem with this is that our pain body feeds off of repressed or resisted emotions. So the pain body, you can think of it as like an echo of your physical body. So you can imagine that here you have this solid, what we perceive as a solid body, and then there's a second body within it, slightly all around it. And it's just not in physical form. And it is the subtle body. And the subtle body is made up of thoughts, beliefs, ideas, as well as emotions, experiences, traumas, and dramas. And that subtle body is meant to just be a flow of energy. And so when we repress something or we resist something or we grip onto it, then we get this disturbance, this turbulence inside of the pain body, or it's what creates the pain body. So instead of it just being this subtle body, this energy that's flowing, full of information, we end up getting this pain body. And this pain body builds up and gains more strength with more and more repressed emotions. And our ego, our identification with form, physical form, not only our bodies, but the things that we believe we own or that make us us, my car, my home, my truck, all those things create part of our ego, as well as my thoughts, my beliefs, my emotions, my experiences. All of these things make up ego, or our identification that we call by our name. And ego loves to live or control within mind, within our psyche. And it feeds off of the pain body, it gains strength from it. So our mind or our ego have no interest in releasing it. Our soul, which, if you think of it as the center point, the seat of the soul is in your heart, makes the body their entry point. And so our presence or our awareness, our soul, our essence, dissolves the hold emotions have on us by placing that light, that information on them. So you can think of trapped emotions, our dramas, and our traumas. You can think of them as like shadows. Shadows in themselves aren't scary. You walk by a tree and there's a shadow if the sun's on one side of it. Not scary. And the same thing can happen within us. We get all of these shadows, these things that are blocking the light from shining outward. Your light is in the center of your heart, and all these things create distortions or shadows, which we will call the pain body. And when we bring that light into it, when we bring our presence, our awareness to the shadow dissolves. Just like when the sun shifts, the light shifts, and there's nothing blocking it anymore, the shadows are gone. So the same thing happens within us and all around us. So presence, our awareness, dissolves the hold emotions have over us. And because I'm a contrarian, let's get edgy here. When you say, I am anxious or I am depressed, you fuse your identity with a temporary state. This feeds the ego, it strengthens the pain body, and it keeps you trapped in cycles that aren't truly yours. So I'm going to encourage you to try this instead. I'm noticing anxiety, or sadness is moving through me, or even the language of I'm experiencing. Language matters. Identity matters. You are not your emotion. You are the one that is aware. You are the witness. It is the identifying with the emotion that sucks us under. It's like an undertow, and it just pulls us into this state, this feeling that we're drowning in it. I remember the first time that my doctor brought this forward to me. It was after my brain injury. Right there, there's an identification. It was after experiencing my brain being injured, and I was struggling with the experience of anxiety, with panic attacks. And my doctor convinced me, I didn't take it lightly, she convinced me to stay with them. I would wake up in the morning and I would be experiencing this overwhelming feeling and sensation of anxiety. And she encouraged me, she challenged me to lay in bed and stay with the experience until I could completely describe it, till I could describe it in such incredible detail that somebody could paint it. What's its color? What's its texture? What's its temperature? Does it move from left to right, up and down? Tell me everything that you can about it. And then as you're experiencing it and you're staying with it, what does it turn into? Now, at first, I didn't want to do this. She's had me do this with other emotions, but anxiety and panic were hard ones. But as I began, my panic attacks panic as I was experiencing, were taking about 20 minutes. When we finished the first week, we were down to probably, I don't know, somewhere between 5 and 10 minutes. By the second week, we were just a few minutes. By the third week, I could experience a rise and fall, and then it would just shift into neutral or into calm or into it's time to get up. And all of a sudden, these things just started to shift. They didn't grip me anymore. I wasn't being pulled under by this sense of overwhelming anxiety, overwhelming panic. The thing is pain is inevitable and suffering is optional. And you'll probably hear me say this in almost every episode, and there's a reason for it. It's because suffering is caused by our thoughts. The thought, what is this anxiety? What is this feeling I'm having? Why am I feeling it? And then we go into a whole story about why we're feeling it. And so all of a sudden we've got this problem because we had this experience of anxiousness and then we added thoughts to it, stories to it that created suffering. When we look at how downward causation works, at the very top, you imagine an upside down triangle. And at the very top of the triangle, there is oneness, unity, like plasma or a clear blue sky. And then as energy, as vibration starts to slow, we get supramental consciousness, which is like individuality, it's archetypes and monads. The overarching rule of certain behaviors, personality types, and emotions. Monads being like, they're an angry person. We all agree what angry is, what happy is. In archetypes, it would be like the quintessential mother or father. So we get these one or two words that envelop an entire meaning. As energy continues to slow, we get mental consciousness. And mental consciousness includes the ego, ideas, thought, beliefs. And as energy continues to slow, and I'll point out that at mental consciousness, you can start to feel it. You know, when you kind of touch in, you can start to catch what other people are thinking. And then as it continues to slow, we get subtle consciousness, or also emotional consciousness. And within that is our emotions, the meridians and the chakras, as well as memories. And so we start to feel this, it's denser. And then finally, energy collapses into physical form. And so if I'm having an experience, an emotion, it goes thought, creates an emotion, then we get a feeling, a physical experience. So there was a thought, then an emotion. So I have the thought. And for me at the time, the thought was, what am I supposed to do? Suddenly I wasn't working. So what am I supposed to be doing now? And so I'd wake up in a panic because I didn't have a job to go to. And so I had the thought, you should be working. Then I have an emotion, panic or anxiety. And then I get the feeling of that in my body. My nervous system dysregulates. I get all these sensations inside of me. And then we create this cycle, this looping pattern, because now I'm experiencing anxiety and I'm like, why am I experiencing anxiety? Oh, because I'm not going to work. Well, I should have a job. Well, you shouldn't be, and it just goes and goes and goes. And suddenly we have it building instead of softening. And so this is why when we say ego loves mind and likes to control mind, because that's the suffering start. Suffering starts in our thoughts. And so suffering is optional because we can simply release the thought. Lying in your bed, experiencing this emotion, and you're just witnessing it. There's nothing else for you to do. And suddenly, the sensation, the feeling of anxiety releases because we've allowed it to rise and fall and then process. When we question those feelings, that physical experience of emotion and thought, then we start creating these loops. Ego is in charge, and identity is created by getting caught in that thinking, feeling loop. So I feel like this is a perfect time for us to do a little practice. I've probably stirred something up. And so take a moment and just come into your body. Now, my preference is to close my eyes. It takes me out of that outer environment and brings me inward. But just come into the body and just start to notice your breath. Notice where the breath is landing in your body. Is it up in your neck and shoulders? Is it in your chest? Is it coming down into your belly, into your pelvis? And if it helps, you can take your hands and place one on your heart and one on your belly, just to give yourself a little physical feedback. And then name what you're feeling. This is sadness, or this is anger. This is joy. And as you name it, I just want you to notice that it's safe to feel it. So you might say, this is sadness, and it's safe to feel. And just be present with it. Notice how it rises and falls. Notice what happens when you just witness it. Does its texture change? Its temperature? And what does it turn into? Emotional mastery doesn't mean you're always calm or composed. It means you can witness your feelings without collapse or over-identification. I always remember that the Dalai Lama was at a university and a student asked him, "Do you ever feel anger?" And he said, "Of course." And they said, "Well, what do you do?" And he said, "Well, I watch anger rise and I watch anger fall." Byron Katie says, when you argue with reality, you lose, but only 100% of the time. Is the basis of loving what is. There's going to be times where we're going to feel emotions or feel an experience, and it's going to come up, I dislike this. But if we don't get into that story of I like, I dislike, which identifies with it, and instead we just stay present with it, everything passes. This too shall pass. Accepting what you feel isn't resignation, it's clarity. To my closet mystics, if you've ever been told you're too emotional, what if that's your magic? What if your depth is what the world needs most? And to my intellectually exhausted women, you know all the right words, you've read the books, but embodiment? That's what's missing. So let's start to move from knowing to feeling, getting out of our head, out of our mind, and into our bodies, into the heart. More than once, I have been made to feel ashamed of feeling rage or anger. And those were big emotions for me. I'm a natural wood element. And actually, I'm a fire and a wood element. And when I'm becoming stressed, anger, irritation, frustration are common emotions for me to have come up. And often it comes from feeling like I can't change something. And so when I would have these big emotions rise, then I would have people, say, well, you shouldn't feel anger, and really encouraged me to suppress it and made me feel bad for how it made them feel, for me to feel anger. Even if it wasn't directed at them or directed at anybody, I just felt rage coming up. Then I was made to feel bad for having those emotions. And I remember during COVID, there was a ton of rage that was coming up in me. I was getting frustrated and pissed off that everybody was being made to feel either really scared or really angry. And for myself, I was feeling this rage come up that we were being manipulated, by those two emotions and what that was causing between us all and creating this disconnection, this divide in humanity. And I had this one friend who just felt like my rage that I was feeling was just too much. We were out for a walk and talking, and I just had it welling up in me. She just couldn't hold it. And I felt absolutely frustrated and ashamed and guilty for having this emotion. And ended up calling another friend who's a coach And I told her what I was feeling, and she said, "I'm so excited. Let's meet." I drove down and I met her and we went for a walk, and she was excited for my rage. She was excited for that energy to come up and its transformative energy. Because the goal is not to fix our feelings, but to be with them, to witness them, to have healthy expression of them. What I didn't know then and had to learn was that emotional expression, it can be liberating. When we witness them and we give them a healthy expression, then they can be beautiful. So, some of the healthy expressions we can use are things like movement. Maybe that's dancing. Maybe that is running. Maybe it's boxing. So, whatever comes through in movement to move that energy through our body. There's journaling. And I was always one to kind of pull back from journaling. But when I was just on a retreat in Greece with my coach, she really encouraged us to journal every morning. And she called them brain dumps. And so for 10 minutes, we would just journal every morning when we woke up. And so we could move through all of the junk that was in there. Maybe it was negative self talk or emotions were coming up, and we could just dump them onto a page. And so sometimes it's just journaling, our emotion. Maybe it's rage. Maybe it's drawing a picture of that. It could be crying and allowing that energy to move through our body through tears. Tears are sacred. It could be the sacred rage and moving that around with big movement. And maybe it's breath work, breathing through the breath of fire or deep belly breathing or letting our bodies expand. It's important that we release shame around emotional release. So I encourage you to use an affirmation to affirm, I am allowed to cry. I am allowed to scream. I am allowed to dance my grief. Do we want these to be in safe environments where we're not spewing them? 100%. You are responsible for your behavior and what we're bringing out into the world. But allowing something to express, to move through us, as long as we're not doing harm, is incredibly valuable. So, with that, let's talk about emotional sovereignty in relationships. Because owning your emotions means not blaming others for how you feel. One of the stories that brought this most home for me, I shared it a long time ago on my Instagram. One of my favorite things that really brought this home for me was this story that was told by Thich Nhat Hanh. And it goes like this. A monk decides to meditate alone, away from his monastery. He takes a boat and floats out into the middle of the lake, closes his eyes, and begins to meditate. After a few hours of undisturbed silence, he suddenly feels a blow of another boat hitting his. With his eyes still closed, he feels his anger rising. And when he opens his eyes, he is ready to shout at the boatman who dared to disturb his meditation. But when he opens his eyes, he sees that it is an empty boat, not tied up, just floating in the middle of the lake. At that moment, the monk understands that the anger is within him. It simply needs to hit an external object to provoke it. After that, when he meets someone who irritates or provokes his anger, he remembers the other person is just an empty boat. The true source of anger is inside of him. When I heard that for the very first time, I think I actually read it, it really cracked something open in me. It made me realize that I'm not a victim of the world around me, that it's my responsibility to know what's coming up within me and let it go. To see this as an opportunity. We'll get into this on another podcast, but the law of magnetic attraction, one of the pieces is that our soul will call things forward for us to become aware of what's still inside of us, wounds, traumas, and dramas, those triggers, so that we have an opportunity to become aware and then let them go. So rather than feeling ashamed of these emotions that come up, we can let them rise and we can let them fall. We can let them move out of us. The best gift that I was ever given was from that friend that allowed me to feel those emotions without them being bad and just experience them and let them go, as long as we don't spew them on other people. In relationships, we can use clear conversations with loved ones regarding our emotions, speaking of what we're experiencing as opposed to blaming it on them. Clear is kind and unclear is unkind. And we can also hold space for loved ones to do the same. Ego wants to get defensive, and the self, it holds space with patience, benevolence. We can acknowledge someone else's emotions without taking them on or taking responsibility, without taking things personally. Emotional reactivity happens when feelings go unacknowledged, and response comes from awareness. One of the techniques I use is to pause, to take a beautiful deep breath and to just name the feeling of that. And then we can align an action, and those actions can be moving away, or they can be checking in, or they can be communicating and moving through them. And so this allows us to go from reaction to response. Emotional reactivity happens when feelings go unacknowledged, and response comes from awareness, from witness. One of the most powerful techniques we can use is the sacred pause. To simply take a moment, take a breath, check in. At that moment, by creating that little bit of space for us, we can start to witness and notice what's coming up. It takes no time at all to check in with ourselves and have a completely different outcome. You can be angry and still loving. You can feel grief and still take powerful action. You can feel fear and move forward anyway. that sovereignty, to not be pushed or pulled by external experiences, dramas and traumas, but by ourselves. I want to invite you to do some practices for emotional sovereignty. Those daily check-ins, like asking ourselves, what am I feeling right now? And then journaling, let the emotions speak. For myself, with my daily journaling, it's usually how I start. That brain dump, the first question I ask is, what am I feeling right now? And then I begin writing and I let that emotion, those feelings speak. And then they can flow and go instead of holding them in and letting them loop. We can give the emotion a voice. Maybe it's movement. Let the body express maybe what words can't, whether that's through dance, ecstatic movement, yoga, running. You can use breath work or EFT tapping for some nervous system regulation. And using the affirmation, my emotions are sacred. I am safe to feel. I am not my emotions. I am the witness, the presence, the power. You were never too much. Your feelings were never wrong. You were just never taught how to hold yourself through it. But you can now. Emotional sovereignty is a return to wholeness. It's not a destination, it's a relationship. And every time you choose to feel with love, you choose freedom. Let yourself feel. Let yourself heal. And let yourself rise. If you are interested in exploring these components of yourself, these aspects of yourself deeper, check out my website. I've created a new coaching program called Soul Alchemy. And in Soul Alchemy, we start to really explore who are we and what are we not. It's all about moving from the practical and way deeper into the spiritual. To be able to answer that question, who am I? Until next time, I see the light in you, and it is frickin' brilliant. And I so badly want you to see it too. You are not broken. You are not too much. You're remembering who you've always been. And this journey is just getting started. If today's episode lit something in you, hit follow so you don't miss what's coming. And if you're feeling it, leave a review. It helps with more soul-led women find this space. Want to go deeper? Come find me on YouTube, Facebook, our private Facebook community, The Awakening Circle, Instagram, TikTok, or at our website, practicalspiritualismco.com, for all the ways we can rise together. Not to worry, all those links are in our show notes. Until next time, stay sovereign, stay bold, and keep that fire lit.